The first question: what advice would Ajahn offer to someone entering long-term solitary retreat?
Well, that normally is a very good thing to have that opportunity. So the first thing I would say is appreciate your good fortune. If you have an opportunity to enter long-term solitary retreat, I would imagine there's other people helping that to take place. So appreciation of those people who are allowing you to go on retreat or support you, whether it's food, accommodation, other things. Also, you have to reflect, I assume you're ready for that. If you've done shorter retreats before, you know yourself, you know how you are, because solitary retreat can be quite challenging. Some people find it too difficult and they can't cope with it, being on their own, with their own thoughts. If their mindfulness, their insight is not so well developed, it can go wrong. So just be a little bit cautious. I don't know you, so I don't know what your background is and how much experience you have with meditation and practice, but be aware, some people do go wrong in solitary retreats, so just have that caution and maybe have a person, a teacher you can refer to, talk to if you ever find things are not going so well on your long-term retreat. Don't be too proud and think, oh, I can do it on my own, I don't need anyone. I would say have a teacher that you can contact in case of emergency or if you're just mentally not doing very well. But having set that up, you've got whatever conditions, good conditions to have a retreat. You appreciate that and the people who are helping you. You have a teacher maybe that you can relate to. I would maybe develop some structure, how you're going to use your time. If you have a long-term solitary retreat, I assume you have lots of time to yourself, no one to talk to, so how much time are you going to spend in formal meditation, sitting, walking, whether you're going to do any kinds of study or have any kind of external Dhamma input from books or audio. That's your choice. I don't know what your situation is, but quite often it's good to have a little bit of Dhamma to stimulate you in one way or another. So sometimes people read a bit, listen to audio, and then put lots of effort into developing mindfulness, sitting and walking. So you develop your daily schedule. And if it's a long-term retreat, maybe you start off the first period experimenting with so many hours of sitting, walking, how much you're going to sleep, when you're going to eat, all the different things, activities in your day, how you're going to do it. You think about it and then establish your personal routine or schedule. And then if it's a long-term retreat, maybe after a period of time, like a month or something, if say, for example, it's a 6-month retreat, for example, after 1 month you might review whether your schedule, your personal routine needs adjusting, whether you need to do more sitting or more walking, or you need some extra Dhamma input, or you need to sleep more or sleep less, or you can experiment, but sometimes you need to do things for a while and then review what's going on and make changes. Also, don't build up too many expectations. It sounds great going on solitary retreat, and often we have expectations. I'm going to realize the Dhamma, this is going to work, I'm going to get my samadhi, I'm going to get enlightened. And I hope you do, but often it doesn't work out quite like we were predicting or expecting. So be ready for the ordinary. A lot of your time on retreat is just very ordinary. Sitting, walking, thinking about the same old things, dealing with the same old hindrances, reflecting on the same old things. A lot of repetition, a lot of sort of mundane activities, and you have to be patient and work through that. But the opportunity to go much deeper into samadhi is there. Opportunity to really reflect on all kinds of aspects of your life, your practice is there. So take it, see this as an opportunity to really further your practice, and I hope it brings good results to you.
Sadhu Lumpo, next question. Can Ajahn tell some Lumpu Kasem stories?
Oh.
Who is Prakru Tep Lok Udon?
These are various teachers famous in Thailand. Lumpur Kasem, actually, there's a few different Lumpur Kasem, so I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but the two main ones I met and know about. One lived in Lampang province in the north of Thailand, near Chiang Mai. Lumpur Kasem Kemako, who he died a long time ago now, 35 odd years ago. He was considered to be an arahant and very tough monk, living basically a very solitary existence. We often talk about him, having great ability with samadhi and obviously great wisdom because he became an arahant. What can I say about him? Well, like many monks who are very smart and very committed to their practice and have a lot of faith and a lot of good qualities from a young age, which he did, what often happens is the Sangha, the greater Sangha of monks, they often want to heap all kinds of responsibility onto a capable young monk. So he was a capable young monk and they all saw that. So they said, oh, you can be abbot of a monastery. So as a young age, I think it was about 8 reigns, which is not very long in terms of being a monk and experience as a monk. They made him abbot of a monastery. And he thought, oh no, once you're an abbot of a monastery, you have a lot of duties, responsibilities, maybe less time to meditate. So he quickly left that monastery. He's only been a monk for 8 years. So he left that monastery and he went off on his own to a charnel ground, a graveyard. What they call a Susan in Thailand, northern Thailand, and that's where he made his home, in a graveyard with the ghosts and the skeletons, he said, and started practicing there and practicing in a very determined and tough way. He'd already shed all the glamour, you might say, of being a teacher, an abbot, given all that up. Now he's in a graveyard where nobody wanted to go. It was considered to be haunted. No one liked that place. So, of course, that's why he chose it, because no one's going to bother him there. So he went to stay there, and he went out every day on alms round. He'd get his food, and he quite often would ask for food that was just like the rotten leftovers food of that household. So literally he would quite often get kind of food that was already not in a very good state. Or sometimes he'd just leave it there in the sun while he was sitting to go off, because food goes off very quickly in the hot sun. So he spent a lot of time eating not very good food. So he was very skinny and probably not that healthy, but he wanted to teach himself to let go of craving, as I was talking about earlier. Craving for food, which is a huge part of our desire to live and be a human being. We associate a lot of our happiness with food. Often we don't realize it, but we do. So anyway, he ate very poor quality food and not much of it. After his meal every day, he would sit for 12 hours in the open. He lived very simply in the open. Didn't even have buildings around him because it was just a graveyard. So he's famous for being able to sit for 12 hours or so every day. Rain, cold, shine, wet, sun, heat. Didn't matter. He would just sit through the elements and the conditions every day, through the day. That was one of his practices. And he became kind of famous in his local area when, quite early on at his time in that graveyard, there was one night he did have a novice staying with him who was helping. Sometimes you have a novice with you a novice can handle food, can dig the ground, do a few jobs. So it wasn't unusual to have a little novice staying. So he had a novice staying with him in another umbrella tent. Monks live in these umbrella tents when they're camping. So he had a novice living there, and one night the novice was awoken in the middle of the night, and he saw Lumpur Kasem sitting meditation as he would for many hours, and this huge dark figure, what we would call an asura or a demon, standing over him, kind of trying to hurt him. And the novice saw this, and the novice freaked out and was so scared he didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to go over. He was too scared. And in the morning he went and saw Lumpur, and he said, "Last night I saw this horrible dark figure standing over you, trying to hurt you." And Lumpur didn't say anything. He didn't admit it or agree. He was very restrained, and he wouldn't talk about things that you don't see, and psychic ability and levels of samadhi, all the things people love to ask questions about. He wouldn't talk much about that. But the novice noticed this huge burn mark on Lumpur's forearm. And he said, "Is that where the demon grabbed you?" And Lumpur didn't say no, so I think that was a tacit agreement, yeah. The demon gave him this kind of burning grip, trying to pull him away from where he was sitting to get rid of him from the graveyard. Basically, the demon is saying, "This is my graveyard, you're not going to be here, I'm going to get rid of you, and I'm going to kill you and threaten you and scare you," whatever demons do. And Lumpur didn't move, and he just sat there and spread metta. And after that, the demon didn't bother anyone. Everything changed, and that graveyard became a very peaceful, happy place. You can still go there today. It's where he lived the rest of his life. And a little wooden kuti was eventually built, which is basically just a shack, tiny little shack. When I went to see him, he was still living in that little shack. And even the king of Thailand went to visit him there. He was such a well-loved, well-respected monk, considered to be an arahant. The whole of that area of Thailand used to follow him, go and see him, and respected him. And he was considered to be a great arahant. So that's one of the Lumpur Gosems. I won't go on too much tonight, because I could talk all night about these great monks. But that's one who you can still go to his monastery today, see his kuti, see where he lived, see his, now they have a statue of him. Now it's been built up into a very big, glamorous monastery, but in those days it was just a graveyard. As far as the next question, who is Prakruteip Lokudon? He's a mysterious figure in Thai Buddhism, considered to be either a deva, so a being who was formerly a monk, died, became a deva in heaven realm, and often devas live for a long, long time. So people know he's in this heaven realm, so they think of him to support their practice, and they kind of talk about him as like being the deva, the heavenly being who's the equivalent in Christian terminology of the patron saint of Tudong monks. So he's like the guardian deity of monks who go wandering in the forests. And there's lots of stories about different monks meeting this deity who appears as a monk, usually very white-skinned, white hair, kind of old monk, but quite noble. The way he sits, very straight, very noble. Or whether he's standing or sitting, and people have all kinds of stories about how he comes to help them at the moment where they're struggling with the storm or the tiger or some ghost or some problem has come along, or some people, maybe some bandits or something, monks that have these stories how he sort of appears to help them at important moments in their life. But he's considered to be a deity, not a human being, although obviously he was formerly a human being. So sort of in the folklore of Thailand, but many monks have confirmed that he does exist, and people love to pray to him, ask for his help. So that's who he is. You can Google these things nowadays. You get quite a lot of information online as well.
Sadhu Lumpo, the next question. Hi Lumpo, may I ask, sometimes I don't feel metta or I feel neutral during metta meditation. Should I still continue doing the metta meditation?
Well, it depends what you mean when you say I don't feel metta, because there's degrees of metta. So does that mean you don't feel metta, meaning you feel anger? If you're feeling anger or experiencing anger, of course, metta at that moment has probably disappeared from your mind. But also sometimes we just feel tired. And it's not that there's no metta there, it's just you don't feel much. And that's quite a common thing for meditators, even if your mind is fairly in a good space, fairly wholesome, but you're just physically you're tired, haven't had enough sleep, or you're ready for sleep, physically tired from work or doing many things perhaps. So you don't feel like you got a lot of fuel in the tank, so to speak. So you could say, oh, no metta, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're full of anger or hate the world, but it can. So I don't know exactly what your terminology means, but if you feel neutral, well, just notice the feeling, like that's part of our practice. We develop mindfulness and insight, whatever we're doing. So say you are practicing metta, well, the feeling that comes with metta, that sort of positive emotional feeling, good feeling, you also develop some insight into that. It comes and goes, it's strong, it's weak, it disappears. So on the level of feeling, you can practice your insight meditation as well. And if you feel very neutral, well, it may just mean you're very tired or something, but you still have the basic intention in mind, wishing yourself well, wishing others well. Your metta is partly intention, isn't it? What we call samma sankappa. It's usually accompanied by feeling and sense of peace. But if you're physically weak or when you're ill, say your metta will be pretty weak because you're ill or you're very tired. But it doesn't mean to say you don't have metta, it just means there's not a lot of juice there, not a lot of feeling. Or, like I said, if you are actually angry or irritated, well, then you have to work at it, not to let that negative, unwholesome state of mind stay in your mind. You want to find a skillful way to abandon it. So often we associate metta and khanti, like patient endurance. They're very closely linked. So say you're in a difficult situation with a difficult person, you don't have much natural metta at this time because this person is being difficult with you, or you're in a difficult confronting situation, you yourself are ill or something bad is happening in the world around you. So metta is not immediately accessible. You might have to work at it just to be very patient with the situation or the person until you can establish more metta. So often our fallback position is to be patient with something, meaning we don't let our mind dwell on the negative aspects. We don't get into a bad mood because of this difficult situation, but we may not have a lot of metta, may not like the person or might not be enjoying this situation, but we still practice patience with it and try not to let our mind slip into a very negative aversion in that situation. So you reflect on things, what the situation is. If you need to keep cultivating metta, I mean, if you're just sitting there meditating, maybe carry on cultivating metta. If it's a more active situation, say with a person, maybe metta, there's not much you can do at that time, so just be patient rather than develop metta until a later date. Sometimes we have to develop metta after everything's finished. You've had the argument or you've confronted the difficult situation, then later, because you noticed you were losing your metta, well, later when you're in a better situation, then you go and you develop some metta for yourself, for that person, if there's a person involved. But if you're actually meditating and you don't feel metta, well, you can try other objects. Like I know one monk who, when he meditates, he doesn't meditate on metta. He said he's never done that. He meditates on the body. what we call Gaya Gata Sati, first foundation of mindfulness. But he's really good at it. He's naturally good at it. He likes it. It makes his mind very peaceful. He says, focusing on the body, say one of the 32 parts of the body or one of the 4 elements, brings his mind peace. When his mind is peaceful, he naturally has metta. Because if you overcome the hindrances by focusing your mind on a wholesome object, what we call a gammatana object or a meditation object, even if it's not directly linked to metta, goodwill, compassion, karuna, but because your mind is peaceful, you will have metta, because no anger is present when your mind is peaceful. When your mind is in samadhi, there's no anger there. So yes, sometimes you change the object. If metta is not working and it's not making you peaceful and your mind is not sticking with that, maybe try something else. And even contemplating the body, 32 parts of the body, 4 elements can bring you metta. You might call it a roundabout way, an indirect way to develop metta. Or breath meditation can bring metta. Reflecting on the Buddha can bring metta. You reflect on the Buddha, we all associate the Buddha with peace, compassion, wisdom. Once you've reflected on the Buddha, then you can go back to metta, or metta will naturally arise perhaps. Or a teacher. Maybe there's a teacher you know and you remember that teacher, think of them, recollect them, in a mindful way, a deliberate way. Metta can come up. And so sometimes you recollect the Buddha or a teacher or the qualities of the Buddha or the qualities of a teacher, especially if you're in a situation where you've lost your metta. So this is more on the active side of metta. When you're angry with someone, having an argument, whatever, you think of the Buddha, you think of your teacher. That can at least bring up a better state of mind so you don't go into anger and then do something or say something you regret or that is very damaging. So sometimes the way to achieve metta is actually think of something else that makes you peaceful. So you have to experiment, see what works for you.
Sadhu Lumpo, the next question. Thank you for your teaching. As I am increasing effort in my practice, I have noticed pain in my chest. It tends to go as my mindful stillness increases. I wonder, could this pain be a physical manifestation of my craving to run away from stillness, or even energy from bad karma?
Could be either. Like sometimes we are concentrating so hard we make ourselves feel pain. Sometimes it's up here and you focus up here, you end up with a headache or some kind of tension. Sometimes it's in the chest. So it's like you're trying to control your mind so much that it actually becomes a bit painful. You're pressing or squeezing it too much. So maybe you have to contemplate the kind of effort you're putting in and see where you can maintain mindfulness. You still need effort for that, but just relax a little bit so you're not oppressing your mind or squeezing your mind so much. Or, like you say, it can also be a karmic thing from the past. And as your mind is becoming more peaceful, more wholesome, it's kind of old karma coming up that normally you don't even notice, or it's suppressed because you're thinking and doing many things, in a normal part of your day, say. But when you go still in meditation, or you're more still, turning your attention inwards, then it manifests. As very, very common for meditators, especially in the first period learning to meditate. It could be a matter of months or years. They experience certain pains, and the chest pain is quite a common one. It's accumulated pain from past actions, could be this life, could be past lives. Basically we've inflicted pain on other people and other creatures, and also ourselves maybe, and it's coming up now. As your mind settles down, it's like, you're now noticing that you've stripped away a certain level of distraction and attachment, and now that pain is very clear to you. You probably just have to be very patient with it and work through it. again, sometimes you can direct your mind with metta, goodwill, karuna, compassion to yourself in this situation, noticing the pain, to kind of soothe yourself, make sure you're not reacting with aversion to it, give yourself the patience to be with it, and just remind yourself not to make anything out of it, not to create anything out of this painful feeling, but just to be very patient with it. Keep going with your meditation. I think most people, from what I've talked to, most people will work through it to the point where it gradually disappears. We say through the action of developing wholesome karma, through meditating, developing mindfulness, listening to Dhamma, understanding the Dhamma, these kind of karma pains fade away, either completely or they get less and then maybe completely disappear. Then you say, the karma is finished. And that gives you some good insight into how karma is something that arises, ceases. It's not self, it's a pain that came from past causes and conditions, now it's gone. You learn a lot from that. So be very patient with it. Keep putting effort into your practice, but if you need to adjust your effort or what you're doing just so you're not making the pain worse, well, good, that might help.
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question. It was my good merit to meet you and visit the monastery earlier this month. I'm interested in participating in a 10-day retreat. Would December or January be suitable? Those months tend to be quieter for me at work, and I had loved to take some time for devout practice.
Yes, you're welcome to contact us. We have an email address. You can look at our website and send your application to come and stay in the monastery. And December, January, yep, that's a good time to come. Really, any time, But whatever suits you, just contact us, give us a bit of advance notice, and we'll do what we can.
Further question. What are the key challenges and benefits of monastic life, and how can I prepare myself for this path?
Well, some of the challenges are kind of personal, depending on you and your character, and sometimes everyone has their different health issues and personality issues, but some things are more general that apply to everyone. Obviously, it's a life of renunciation, based in what we call nekama renunciation. So the longer you're in the monastery, if it's like this monastery has a graded series of trainings from being anagarika, novice to a monk. It's a training in giving up. So you give up money, you're celibate, so you give up sex, you give up owning a lot of possessions and the sort of freedoms of the lay life where you travel here and eat what you want, when you want, and do what you want, when you want, and say what you want, and all this kind of stuff. You're giving up a lot. And at first, that takes adjustment and patience and working with yourself. But in the long run, you gain. Once you give up, then you gain the peace, the awareness, and the training gives you all kinds of great qualities. Mindfulness, samadhi, insight, understanding. You learn to be very adaptable. You learn to be very patient with conditions, so you can adapt to many things and live in different situations and not complain and not get stressed about things. You learn how not to get stressed by life. You gain all kinds of good things from the monastic life, but at first you're learning. So you have to be willing to give it time, be patient to learn, put effort into your practice, keeping the rules, doing the meditations, living the simple life in the forest, so to speak. How you can prepare for that? Well, try to keep up a regular meditation practice at home, either once or even twice a day. Meditate quite with a certain amount of discipline. Try and do it regularly. Try to simplify your life as a preparation for the monastic life. So, cut out unnecessary social events, entertainments, distractions, keep things to a minimum, focus on the most important things, maybe your family. If you have to work, obviously you have to do your job, but try to simplify things, try to live in a moral way, so you're keeping at least the 5 precepts and maybe sometimes the 8 precepts. Meditate regularly, get used to listening to Dhamma, reading Dhamma, listening to Dhamma, because in the monastic life that sustains you, especially in the beginning. We read and listen to Dhamma quite often. Learning chanting can help. If you're into that and you've learned some before, learn some more chanting or do your chanting at home. So you do introduce little bits of the monastic life into your lay life where you can, and that will help. And some people, not everyone, but some people like me and other friends of mine, they get to a point where they're ready for the monastery. It's like, practicing on this level in the lay life is too difficult. There's too many obstacles. I want to be in the monastery. If you actually want to be in the monastery, that's good, because then you really, you go there and you're ready for the monastery. Not everyone is like that, though. Some people are just experimenting or trying it out, don't really know, and you just have to accept, well, you don't really know, so you try it and see what happens. In the end, no one can know everything that's going to happen, because it's a very different lifestyle than anything else in the world. And so you can't be quite sure how you'll react, whether you'll do well, whether you'll feel peaceful, whether you'll gain some understanding or maybe not. And it's not for everyone, so you have to try it and see.
Sadhu Lumpo, next question. Dear Lumpo, you mentioned that if one meditation object is not working for you, at one time you can try something different. How much can we do this in one sitting? Some teachers say just stick with one object and not to change object within one sitting. Please advise.
Yes and no. If you're going to meditate, say, one sitting, so one period of time, yes, you probably want to just have your main meditation object, your main plan, and you're putting out your main effort, your efforts into focusing your mind on that object, or keeping that object in mind as much as you can. As far as over a period of time, well, yes, you may try one object, say you try mindfulness of breathing for a few months or something regularly, and it's just not working and it's really difficult or not working for you, well, then you may try some other object. But, give it a period of time. Don't just change. I wouldn't recommend just chopping and changing in one sitting or even in 1 or 2 days, but over a period of weeks, months, if something's not working, okay, try something else. But having said that, as you meditate on any object, in one sitting, there may be different things coming up in your mind, depending on what's happening in your life, your day, your karma. So, you may be generally using the mindfulness of breathing, for example, but there's a day you sit down and you're just full of anger from something that's happened. What do? You can't find the breath, you can't stay with the breath. So you may have to introduce other aspects of the practice to help you for a short period of time or for a period of time until you can settle your mind. So some of them are very specific, so like metta for anger, or contemplating impermanence. If you have a lot of desire, or you're thinking of things you like and want, just contemplate maybe the impermanence, how you've had those pleasures before and they arose and passed away, and look, they didn't bring you any lasting happiness, they're just impermanent, to let them go. Or you reflect on the object of your desire, how it has its disadvantages, its faults, it's not as good as you might think. Look for the unattractive side of whatever it is you're desiring. If you're sitting and you're really falling asleep and you keep falling asleep, well, maybe stand up and do some walking meditation. There may be specific things you do at certain times to counter the hindrances, but that's not changing your object so much, it's more just dealing with the problem, and then maybe you go back to your main object later. And sometimes you have to do it this way. Sometimes we use more wisdom, so reflect on impermanence most people find that very helpful. Everything is uncertain, my mind and my thoughts are uncertain, the feelings in my body are uncertain, everything is uncertain, how I feel about my meditation is uncertain. One day I like it, the next day I don't. Oh, look at my mind, it's so uncertain. And you use it to help understand better what's going on, maybe not take your thoughts so seriously, so then you can meditate more successfully. It's just an example. So sometimes we introduce reflections, different practices to deal with a certain obstacle or challenge in our meditation. But I wouldn't advise chopping and changing your object too quickly. I would really give each, if you give it, using a meditation object, give it your full attention and really work with it for a period of time, many days, weeks, even months, and then change. And sometimes people progress, as it were. They start with one meditation object for a few years, and then they feel more settled and understand the Dhamma better. Then they change to another meditation object quite naturally over time. So it's not that you should never change your object, but I wouldn't do it too impetuously or too, casually, just, oh, try this, try that. That's, we call that the supermarket mentality, and you're just picking and choosing as a kind of distraction, really. It probably won't lead to anything good.
Sadhu, for the next question, I have been practicing the 5 precepts and occasionally the 8 precepts on observance days, which has helped me develop a greater understanding of karma, impermanence, and non-self. Through daily meditation, I have cultivated patience and compassion. As I consider joining the Sangha community to pursue ultimate freedom, could you offer guidance on how to strengthen my practice and prepare myself for monastic life? What key qualities and preparations are essential for someone looking to dedicate their life to spiritual growth and service?
Well, it sounds like you're doing the right things already. Review your precepts every day, and like you say, when you've got the chance, keep the 8 precepts, because that involves a bit more renunciation, which is a good preparation for monastic life. Meditate every day, reflect, as you've been saying. One thing I used to do as a layman, I'd read a sutta or a part of a sutta every day, because I found that quite difficult in the beginning, the language and the sort of style of Buddhist suttas, the words of the Buddha. I wanted to familiarize myself, and I suspected that my lack of familiarity with the suttas and the style of teaching of the Buddha was an obstacle, in the sense I'm just not used to it. But if I kept reading and got more familiar, I'd probably start to get more out of it. And I did. It took a while, but reading the words of the Buddha regularly, I found, gradually familiarized myself with the concepts, the way he taught. And the Buddha has a lot of practical wisdom in his teachings. It's just you have to kind of get there, recognize it when you see it. And at first maybe you don't notice it, but it's there. And so you get familiar with the terminology, like you say, reflecting on karma, impermanence, not self, listening to the good Dhamma, so from the Buddha or from good teachers. So for me, I read a lot of Ajahn as well, but other teachers are good as well. There's many good teachers. I would read a lot or listen to a lot to familiarize yourself with the concepts, the language, the way they talk about the Dhamma. That will help you as well. And of course, when you're ready, when you're free, go to a monastery, even if just to offer dana, participate in short periods of meditation or helping out or doing things, that will help as well. You also have to avoid certain things, don't you? If you're preparing for the monastic life, it's not the time to get married. Don't get married. Warn your partner if you have a partner. I'm thinking of going to the monastery and see what they say, because you might have to work through a few things with them. Maybe it's not the time to accept the sort of big, ambitious move in your job, because you take that on and then you won't want to go to the monastery. Think about, I'm joking here, but think about other aspects of your life. Is your life supportive or conducive for you to go to the monastery? Are you ready to abandon your job, your relationships, your friends, your activities? Some things we can abandon easily. Sometimes we're really attached to something and it's like, oh, I don't really want to give this up. You may have a certain hobby or friend or something that you don't really want to give up, but these are things to think about as well. What are you giving up, and what obstacles to giving up do you still have? So think about that and try and, if you're genuinely interested to live in a monastery, you want to sort of develop your lifestyle in a way that will support that when the time comes. When you're ready, you can just leave your lay life fairly easily. You're not just sort of currently trying to accumulate lots of wealth and go here and do that. Where will that end? Probably won't. So it should be doing the opposite. Maybe it's time to start giving things away and not trying to accumulate so much wealth, and not the time to start a new relationship or get married, perhaps. So I would sit down and reflect on your life.
Sadhu Lumpur, next question. Building on today's earlier question about chest pain or discomfort during meditation, possibly caused by past karma surfacing, can meditators who are advancing in their practice sometimes develop serious physical illness as a result of this karmic process unfolding and coming to the surface?
Well, anyone can get ill. I mean, it's not necessarily related to meditation or Dhamma practice. People who don't practice the Dhamma and don't meditate get ill. So I'm not sure that your question seems to be implying if you're meditating and experiencing some pain or illness during your meditation, that somehow your meditation is making it worse or making it come to the surface. I'm not sure something like that is likely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's unlikely. I mean, illness is probably coming through a number of reasons: lifestyle, proximity to other people as well, and then some illness will be karma, but meditating may or may not affect that. Sometimes it can help you to boost your immune system. You're more relaxed, more with a better sense of well-being from your Dhamma practice. Maybe you deal with the illness better. Sometimes I would say that's quite common. But whether the actual meditation is causing it, I'm not sure it is. It's more likely to be from past actions coming up, and they may be coming up anyway, whether you're meditating or not. One thing, when you start meditating and you're sort of perhaps simplifying your lifestyle, well, you notice things a lot more. But I would say generally practicing the Dhamma, keeping precepts, meditating, even if you do have to face illness, sometimes injuries, you're in the best position to do that because you're more mindful, more aware. You're developing a sense of well-being from your practice. So even though these kinds of karma come up, you can deal with them often better. if you're working really hard and busy and having relationship problems, you get ill, that's only just one more problem, isn't it? And maybe everything is going downhill. If you're practicing the Dhamma and meditating, you still have karma come up, but you can deal with it better maybe. Your mindfulness is better, your ability to reflect is better, you're more patient, you're more accepting, you're more forgiving, more letting go, working with your mind better. Quite often you'll do a lot better because of your practice. But whether it's the, stimulating things to come to the surface or not, the karma is a very kind of subtle thing. There's always so many different causes and conditions. I think it's quite hard to generalize there.